Hey, how's it going, everyone? Today I want to take you very quickly through my editing process. I get some questions about some of my black and white edits, and I've been doing kind of this theme lately of sort of old-fashioned looking black and white images. And I have an image here that I took while I was out filming my last vlog, and it was a great example that I thought I would go ahead and sit down and share with you how I took this raw file and turned it into this black and white image. So, let's get to it. Alright, so back to the original raw file here. Not a bad photo. And it actually looks pretty decent in color, I think. But we're going to go ahead and make some changes here. So, right now we're just going to go ahead and start off by converting this to black and white. And we're going to try and find some contrast here. So, with the green in the grass, I'd like to get a little contrast out of that. So, you can see as we change the green slider here, we get some nice dark patches there. Yellow and orange, there's a lot of yellow and orange in that grass, so let's see what we get here. So the orange is giving us some highlights, so I like the orange, so we're going to really raise that orange up. Then the yellow is probably going to just do everything, which it does. We'll drop the green a little bit more here. So we've got some nice contrast going in the grass there. And the yellow also, if you look, kind of does a little bit of our trees and our building a little bit. So be a little bit careful with that. There we go. We'll just leave it right there. And we want to change our sky a little bit. We want to get a little bit of separation. Now, the best way that I've found to work on this, you can move these sliders a bit, and we will here. The blue slider I do want to move down a little bit. But what you'll notice is if you start moving these sliders too much, you'll start causing a lot of noise. I don't know how well you can see it, but there's some noise under here. You're getting some noise in the sky, and it's just not a very pleasant look. So we're going to put that blue back up here to where it started. So what we want to do to get the right color balance in our black and white image is we want to go down here to camera calibration. Actually, before we do that, let's do our lens corrections, because that will change the color a bit. I guess it didn't really do much for this one. Okay, so we're down in camera calibration. Now you can go through these different calibration modes and see which one gives you kind of the outcome you're looking for. So faithful, a little dark, landscape, sky's a little bright for me. Typically what I like to go for is the camera standard. And there you go, just changing that from Adobe standard to camera standard. And I feel like we got a little bit more contrast out of that. So we're going to leave it there. And let's actually bump up our exposure here just a little bit. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, so we want to bring down some highlight here just a little bit, because we're going to do some other adjustments that are going to mess with that too. So we don't want to do too much here. Shadows, we can boost up a little bit in the shadows, but we're actually going to do some local adjustments for that. We'll bring the whites up, we'll bring our blacks down a little bit. And what I like to do is just move the contrast slider. There we go. So we've got kind of a good look going here now with moving our contrast slider, a little bit of exposure, and some highlight adjustments. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go into our tone curve. And this is where we're going to have to make some more adjustments to our contrast here. But what I like to do is, right here, we're on the point curve. And I like to take it from linear to medium contrast. And depending on the image, you can do either medium, strong. It's just going to depend on what you're working with. So for this one, I'm going to do medium contrast. And one of the things that I like to do is take this point that they add right here, just right click and delete it. And then I like to take my black point and drag it up a little bit. Usually somewhere around the 10-11% mark. So I'm going to put this, oops, that's a little high there. I'm going to put this one at about 10% here. And then I'm also going to move my white point for this image. So moving the white point, you can see how it tones down those really bright highlights. And you don't have to do much with that. So there we go. So that's our tone curve out of the way. Next thing I want to do is a little bit of local adjustments. So I want to, let's zoom in a little bit here. And one of the things that I notice when I look at this is that the top of this seems pretty dark. So I want to grab my local adjustment brush. It's got a little bit of exposure to it. And I just want to brush in a little bit of exposure on this. You do want to be careful. I am going to take my feather down a bit here. Now I do have the flow, I do have the flow all the way up, so I don't have to worry about getting it uneven. So wherever I paint, we're going to get that amount of exposure. So I just want to fill in this side of the building here. And then I actually want to do a little bit back here, I think, as well. So we'll get this side here just up to that grate. And there, I'm kind of liking what we have right there. Now I want to do a new brush and I want to zoom in here. So we're going to zoom in again. And I want to get these eaves. So we're going to do another one here. Again, we have a little bit of exposure. We're going to brush this in. And it's not doing a whole lot for us yet. It will. It will, but we want to be careful where we brush because we don't want to go up into the sky too much. Okay. So we have that. Now, what we're going to do is, this is all very dark, so I want to increase the shadows here. You can see as we move that shadow slider, everything just sort of pops right out of there. So we get a lot of detail back in there. And we're not really getting any issues up here with the sky. We are right here, we're getting a little bit. So we're looking pretty good there. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to call that done. Zoom back out, and you can see now we have a little bit more of an even look. I'm actually going to tone this down a little bit. There we go. Now we have a nice even look to our building here, where this was much darker before, and there's our before and after there. So I like that. Okay. Now what I want to do is I want to crop this in a little bit because I don't want all this sidewalk. I want some of it, but I don't want all this sidewalk down at the bottom, and I want to get rid of this little branch that's up above. So we're going to go into crop. We're going to go into crop here, and I'm going to hold down Shift and Alt and just grab this top point and drag it a little bit. a little bit further than I actually need to. And then we're going to slide the image back up. And I want to keep this building centered, because one of the things that I like is I like that the trees are kind of framing the building a bit. So we're going to leave that there, and you can see I'm just cutting off that branch there. And we have just a little bit of sidewalk left. So now I'm going to grab a gradient filter. And I want to just add in a little bit lower exposure down here in the grass. It's going to just help pull focus away from the grass and up into the center of the image here where we want it. Great. So we're going to need another local adjustment brush, because I don't like how these trees are looking. They're very dark. They don't have any detail to them. So what I want to do is zoom back in here, and I just want to brush again, just a little bit of exposure. And you got to be careful. You don't want to brush in places that you really don't want extra exposure. So be careful with how you're doing this. And it may take you a minute to get it right, but you just want to get the brush into some of these main dark areas. And it's not really doing much for us right now, but just like with the eaves, it will. It will, so just be patient here. Okay, now we have both of these trees painted in. We've got just a little bit of exposure on them, but now we're going to increase our shadows again. You're going to see everything kind of just start popping out of here. There we go. We're at right about 60. Right about 60. And I'm liking that. So now you can see, again, with the trees there, we just have so much more detail in there than we had a second ago. And it adds just a little bit more character to the image. So we're done with that local adjustment here. So what can we do to this to help make it a little bit more interesting? One of the things that I like to do is split toning. We can add a little bit of a split tone, and I like to do a little bit of the teal and orange for this type of image. So on our highlights here, if you just hold down the Alt key, we can drag the hue slider, and you can see it's going to show us exactly what color we're getting. So let's drag that hue slider until we find a color that we like. And I think I like that yellow color right there. So let's add in a little bit of saturation now so we start to see that. And you see, you can go crazy with it and get a huge amount of orange in there. We don't want that. We just want it to be subtle. Just want it subtle. So we'll go right here. And you can see that just adds a little bit of orange to it. And on our shadows now, we want to go with our teal color. So let's go ahead and, again, hold down the Alt key. Click our shadows. And let's drag the shadows over here till we find a color that we like. I kind of like that right there. So now let's drag our saturation slider up a bit. There we go. Okay, so now you can see before split toning and after. And then we have the balance slider here as well. So we can choose, do we want more of our shadow color? Do we want more of our highlight color? So we can kind of mix and match this and find exactly what we like here. And I think somewhere right about here is going to be good. So you can see before the split tone and after. So it's very subtle. It's very, very subtle, but I like that extra little bit of character. And last thing we're going to do here, just to finish this off, is we're going to do a little bit of a mask on our sharpening, because you can see here, if you hold down Alt and click and drag, shows you what you've got sharpened. And I don't want all that sky sharpened because it is going to create noise when you start doing black and white. So we want to pull that out as much as possible. So somewhere about there is pretty good, I think. So, okay, so we've got that masking, and now our last touch is going to be a vignette. Now, like I said, we're going for kind of an old feel to this image. We've got a nice beat up old building, so I want the image to look like it's old. So one of the best ways to do that is add a nice big vignette to it. So you don't want to go too crazy with it, but I actually like that right there. I actually like that. And it does darken up the top of our building a little bit, but it's okay. It's okay. And you know what? I want to brighten this up a bit more. Now that we have the effects down that we want, let's get the exposure balance and everything that we are looking for here. So I'm going to increase my whites there. I'm going to drop my highlights again, because we don't want to go crazy on this side right here. Alright, and there we go. I think for a pretty quick edit there, I think this is pretty nice. If it was something I was going to, you know, post online or portfolio, anything like that, obviously you spend a lot more time and dial everything in. But you can see this is the image we just did, and this was my original edited image right there. So you can see there is a lot more attention to detail on this one. But same process, just took more time to sit down and kind of nitpick everything. So yeah, so that is how I edit my old style black and white images. So hopefully some of you guys found that helpful. If you did, please go ahead and give this video a share if you want to share it. A thumbs up if you did enjoy it, and subscribe for more photography vlogs and tutorials like this. So yeah, that's all I have for today. Thank you guys for watching, and until next time, take care.